Lesson 2.1, Task 2. Analyze units of measurement. Consider the following situation. Here the cost involves one unit, but the weight involves another. You will need to use a conversion factor to make the units the same. At the store, Keely buys a total of 44 ounces of apples and grapes. Let A represent the weight in ounces of apples Keely buys. All right, so you can see here, apples are $2 per pound, grapes are $1.50 per pound. Which expression represents the weight of the grapes in ounces? All right, so together they have a total of 44 ounces of apples and grapes. So if you do 44 minus the apples, and it said let A represent the apples, then that would represent the weight of the grapes. So 44 minus A is the expression that represents the weight of the grapes. All right, so it says the conversion factor. 1 pound is the same as 16 ounces. So 1 pound divided by 16 ounces is 0.0625 pounds per ounce. Gives the relationship between pounds and ounces. Which statement explains how to use this conversion factor to write expressions for the weight of the fruit so that the units are compatible with the given units or with the given cost? So our choices are multiply the weight of a fruit in ounces by the conversion factor, divide the weight of the fruit in ounces by the conversion factor. All right, so if we're trying to figure out for 44 ounces, we're going to have to multiply the weight by how many ounces in the fruit. All right, so it says complete the expression for the weight of the apples in pounds. Enter your answer as a decimal. All right, so we've already seen that the conversion factor is 0.0625. So we're going to do 0.0625 because it's in ounces. And we're going to multiply that by A, which represents apples. So the weight of the apples in pounds is the weight of the apples in ounces, A multiplied by the conversion factor, 0.0625 pound per ounce. Weight of the apples in pounds is the same thing as 0.0625 times A. All right, so now it says complete the expression for the weight of the grapes in pounds. All right, so we already said that the grapes equals 44 minus whatever A is. So we've got to do the conversion factor. So you'd multiply by this same 0.0625, and then that would be times 44 minus A. And this would give you the weight of the grapes. All right, that's all for task 2. If you have any questions, let me know. Lesson 2.1, task 3. Write and simplify expressions. Expressions may contain grouping symbols, such as parentheses or brackets. To eliminate grouping symbols, you can use the distributive property to multiply the number outside the parentheses by each term inside the parentheses. All right, here's the distributive property. For all numbers A, B, and C, A parentheses B plus C equals A times B plus A times C. So you can see they take the A, multiplied it by the B, and by the C. So for example, this is an example with numbers, 3 times 4, and then plus 3 times 2. 3 times 4 is 12, 3 times 2 is 6, 12 plus 6 is 18. So you can use distributive numbers with variables, with numbers, or with a combination. Variable terms whose variables and their exponents are the same are like terms. You can combine like terms by using the distributive property to add their coefficients. You simplify an expression by eliminating any grouping symbols and combining like terms so that the expression is easier to read and use. Two expressions are equivalent expressions if they have the same value for all values of the variables. Consider how you used a conversion factor in task 2 to rewrite expressions with compatible units. Now write and simplify an expression to represent the total amount Keeley spent on fruit at the store. Use the compatible units found in task 2 to write a verbal model. All right, so here's our verbal model. So the cost of the apples, we know that they were $2 per pound, but then when we use the conversion to ounces, we've got 0.0625 times A. This is the weight of the apples times $2 per pound. And then cost of the grapes, they're $1.50 per pound. When we convert those to ounces, so we have weight of grapes in pounds, would be 0.0625 times 44 minus A. Remember, 44 was the total of apples plus grapes. So if we do 44 minus however many apples there are, that's how many grapes there are. All right, so it says write and interpret the expression. Which part of this expression represents the total cost of the apples? Well, the total cost of the apples is these two parts here together. So 2 times 0.0625A would represent the amount of apples, or the cost of apples. Which part of the expression represents the total cost of grapes? Well, that would be the second part. Okay, the 150 times this here would be the total cost of the grapes. All right, now it says to simplify the expression. So they're going to use distributive. So they're going to do 2 times this expression here gives you this. 1.5 times this first number here. And then, well, it looks like they've got to do distributive twice. So we're going to do this number times 44, and then this number times negative A to get this. And then we're going to use the 1.5 times. 2.75 gives you 4.125. 1.5 times this negative 0.0625A will give you this number here. So they're using distributive property from above. Remember, when you have distributive property, you multiply this number times both things inside the parentheses. Distributive property is something you'll see very often from now on. All right, now when it says combine like terms, this one has an A and this one has an A, so you can combine the A's here and then bring down the plus 4.125. So when it says simplify, we can't solve it because it's not an equation, but we can simplify down to make it look much simpler. All right, so it says in the second to last line, to simplify the expression, 0.125A plus 4.125 minus 0.09375A, y is 0.09375 and not 0.0625, the coefficient of A in the last term. Okay, so they're saying, why is this number here different than this number? And again, it's due to those parentheses and distributive property. 1.5 times the first term gives you this. 1.5 times the second term here gives you this number here. So the number changed because of distributive property. All right, that's all for task 3. If you have any questions, let me know.